see you've closed the thermal cover. Before step 4, we were looking for a porous plate inspection. Could you get one of that? Could you get that for us, please?
Good catch, will do it.
Copy, thanks.
Again, you are seeing JAXA, Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Takuya Onishi step through procedures to configure NASA astronaut Anne McClain's spacesuit there on the right hand of your screen. Assisting is NASA astronaut Johnny Kim. Earlier this morning, McClain and Ayres completed pre-breathing exercises, which consisted of breathing 100% oxygen. And then the second phase, the crew got into their spacesuits and conducted something called the in-suit light exercises, or ISLE, which they move their legs and arms slightly, which helps raise their metabolic rate to speed up getting rid of excess nitrogen. These are precautionary measures that are done before spacewalks to ensure that the spacewalkers do not suffer from decompression sickness. And we're getting a good view inside of Nicole Ayres' spacesuit as Takuya Onishi steps through procedures to configure it ahead of today's spacewalk. The spacewalk will officially begin when the crew switches their suits to internal battery power. And on your screen, you do see JAXA astronaut Takuya Onishi working again on Nicole Ayers' spacesuit. He's installing Medox canisters onto her spacesuit because the crew will be in the vacuum of space. They rely on the spacesuit. It's their primary life support system, essentially a mini spacecraft that has everything that they need to keep them safe in the vacuum of space.
Houston Airlock on 1, both crew members, Taurus plate looks good.
Copy. Both places look good. Thanks, Tuck.
Houston Airlock on 1, step 11, recorded GMT 11:19.
11:19. Copy.
Continuing to get views inside the International Space Station's airlock as NASA astronaut Anne McClain on the right of your screen and Nicole Ayers on the left of your screen prepare for today's spacewalk. The primary tasks for the spacewalkers today is to install a support bracket called a modification kit, which will prepare the International Space Station for future installation and deployment of the fourth of 6 new International Space Station rollout solar arrays, or IROSAs. Today's location will be taking place at the 2A, where the bracket will be installed. And the astronauts will install the modification kit to the mass canister at the base of the original solar arrays. Additionally, the crew will also relocate a communications antenna called the Common Communications for Visiting Vehicle or C2V2 antenna to ensure better redundancy in communication with visiting spacecraft to the space station. Assisting inside the airlock, Assisting inside the airlock today is NASA astronaut Johnny Kim, who you see there in the center of your screen, as well as JAXA astronaut Takoya Onishi. Next up, they're going to work together to get the safer or simplified aid for EVA rescue installed onto today's spacewalkers. The safer is essentially a jetpack that would help propel the crew to safety should they become untethered.
0012 for the expanded MENOX for step 18.
Good numbers, thank you.
Once the safers are installed, the duo will complete some additional checks of their spacesuits to make sure everything is configured properly, including some communications checks with the team here on the ground. And then they'll get the go to move into the crew airlock for depressurization. Once the crew airlock is at a pressure of 0 or equivalent to the vacuum of space,
Moving into period clock 1124, 1124.
1124, copy.
again, once the crew airlock is depressurized down to vacuum, the crew will get the go to open up the hatch and step outside the International Space Station to begin work for today's spacewalk to install an additional set, to install a mounting bracket ahead of the installation of an additional set of International Space Station rollout arrays, as well as to relocate a communications antenna for visiting spacecraft to the International Space Station. Today's spacewalk will be the 275th in support of space station assembly, maintenance, and upgrades. And we are now starting to get a view of the safer or simplified aid for EVA rescue, which will be installed on both McLean and Air's spacesuits. The safer is essentially a jetpack that the astronauts wear when they perform spacewalks as a precautionary measure in the unlikely event that they were to become untethered from the space station. Safer or simplified aid for EVA rescue would allow the crew member to safely propel back to the International Space Station. Working to help install the safer or simplified aid for EVA rescue is NASA astronaut Johnny Kim on the left of your screen. Also assisting is JAXA or Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Takuya Onishi. They'll work together to get that installed on NASA astronaut Anne McLean's spacesuit first. She will be serving as EV1 during today's spacewalk. She's wearing the spacesuit with the red stripes. Following this, they'll work together to get Nicole Ayers' space safer installed on her spacesuit. She's wearing the spacesuit with the unmarked. She's wearing the spacesuit that is unmarked today and is serving as EV2. And as NASA astronaut Anne McClain continues to get her safer, simplified aid for EVA rescue installed on her spacesuit, let's take a look at the tasks planned for today's spacewalk. And that is an overview of the tasks we can expect during today's spacewalk. We are getting views back inside the International Space Station. Here on your screen, on the right-hand side of your screen, is JAXA, or Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Takuya Onishi. He's working to install the safer or simplified aid for EVA rescue on NASA astronaut Anne McClain's spacesuit. She will be serving as EV1 today and wearing the spacesuit with the red stripes. Also on the left of your screen is NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers preparing for her very first spacewalk. She's wearing the spacesuit that is unmarked.
Airlock, step 61, the top of EV1 supplemented porous plate appears dry.
We copy.
NASA astronaut Anne McClain, now in the middle of your screen wearing the spacesuit with the red stripes, is going to be assisted by NASA astronaut Johnny Kim and JAXA astronaut Takuya Onishi into the crew lock. Once both McClain and Ayers are in the crew lock, the hatch will be closed, and some communications checks will take place ahead of depressurization. Getting a good view there on your screen of McClain as she is inside the crew lock now. McLean in the spacesuit with the red stripes, now in the crew lock portion of the International Space Station. This will be her third spacewalk of her career. Next up to join her in the crew lock will be NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers, preparing for her very first spacewalk of her career. Today's spacewalk will be the 275th in support of space station maintenance, assembly, and upgrades. Primary tasks today are to install a modification kit ahead of future power solar array upgrades for the International Space Station, as well as relocate a communications antenna for visiting vehicles or spacecraft to the International Space Station. And now coming into your view, you see the SAFER again. That's that simplified aid for EVA rescue. NASA astronaut Johnny Kim and JAXA astronaut Takoya Onishi are going to work to install that on Nicole Ayers. That SAFER is worn as a precautionary measure in the unlikely event that a crew member should become untethered from the International Space Station. The SAFER is essentially a jetpack that would allow them to get back to the International Space Station to retether themselves. And we are in a brief handover period between our satellites, but do expect to gain communication and view with the crew again here shortly. Here in the room, the team of Orbit 2 flight controllers are being led by NASA Flight Director Deanna Trujillo. She just completed a poll of the flight controllers here in the room for a go, no-go for depressurization. Everything looking good and on track for today's spacewalk, the 275th in support of space station maintenance, assembly, and upgrades. The main tasks of today's spacewalk are to install a modification kit in preparation for ongoing solar array upgrades.
Good, no changes.
We copy all. Thank you.
Additionally, today's spacewalkers will relocate a communications antenna for visiting spacecraft to the orbiting lab. There you do see on your screen the boom or communications for visiting vehicle antenna and the relocation process that is going to take place. It's going to be moved about 1.5 feet, which will allow better redundancy